Now, in an extraordinary development, activists at the Australian Breastfeeding Association are pushing for the term mother to be replaced by parent, with a new booklet to be published explaining how biological males are capable of so-called human milk feeding. Thankfully, one Liberal senator is fighting back. Claire Chandler has alerted Health Minister Greg Hunt of the conflict within this association, which has received millions of dollars in taxpayer funding. For more on this, I'm joined from Sydney by broadcasting legend and host of Alan Jones, the great Alan Jones. Alan, Claire Chandler here has labelled this a damaging and divisive identity politics move. But how on earth did we reach this point where we can't even say breastfeeding? We've got to say chest feeding.
Well, Rita, I think you know all about this. I mean, we've been talking about this not for months. This has been going on for years. It's the thin edge of the wedge, and these people just keep at it. In fact, as you know, there are some hospitals in England which are already behaving in this way and using this particular language. And the notion that a man can be chemically induced, a biological man, even if he wants to be a woman, can be chemically induced to produce milk or to lactate, and therefore a child could be fed from such a chemically induced process when there are no health studies about the validity of any of this. These are disturbing things. See, in all of this, Rita, as you and I have been saying, and this station has been saying, whether it's Peter or Andrew or Rowan or whomever, Paul have been saying, where is someone in a position of national leadership saying this will not happen in this country? That's all that has to be said. But the politicians are silent on any of this. Claire Chandler has had something to say. I mean, this is absolutely absurd. That's the notion of a biological mother. Oh, anyone can breastfeed. Anyone can have children. I mean, what the hell are we doing? It's a very disturbing development, and it's threatening to young people in particular who start to think that this is the way of the world.
Absolutely, and it devalues motherhood. I mean, this story was published on Mother's Day in the Australian yesterday. And, you know, motherhood means something, womanhood means something, and they're trying to erase that. They want to say people who give birth. They don't want to say mothers. They want to say chest feeding, not breastfeeding. And it's, it's not an isolated case,
there are many mothers in this outfit called the Breastfeeding Association who don't know this is going on. And they feel they've learnt about this via the media, and they feel very strongly about it. And now they're being threatened and intimidated. You're not allowed to stand up for your biological status. You're not allowed to defend womanhood. You're not allowed to defend the female body. And this is just, it's completely out of control, and it demonstrates a total absence of leadership. And as I keep saying, Rita, Sir Thomas More once said, silence betokens consent. If politicians have nothing to say, it must be that they consent to this kind of development.
Absolutely. And you know what? The Prime Minister finally, I think it was last week, came out and said a few words about the ills of identity politics, but we need to hear a lot more from him on these issues. The culture wars are actually important. Now, of course, this is a segment where we discuss the big issues suggested by you, the viewers, on Peter's Facebook page. So let's get into it, Alan. Karen McCaw asks, why is Morrison locking down the borders indefinitely? I'm so sick of him moving the goalposts. What do you think about that, Alan?
Well, I think it's very hard to believe, isn't it, that we're living in a country which you can't leave and you can't arrive. It's not just people from India who can't come here, 9,000 of those. There are 35,000 other Australians in other parts of the world who can't come home. What's the point of your passport? May as well rip it up. As an Australian, you can't leave your country and you can't arrive in your country. Now, there are people in countries, Americans are travelling, people in Europe are travelling. Obviously, you must meet in these very difficult health environments, you must meet certain criteria, but surely to goodness it's possible to determine when the person enters the country, I mean, whether or not they have any kind of infection. I'm not just talking about coronavirus. But this is also a vote of no confidence in the quarantine system, isn't it? I mean, we've known for 15 months the need to quarantine people. Therefore, we surely have had time to build appropriate quarantine facilities. We haven't done that. And so we're virtually having a vote of no confidence in our own quarantine facilities. But to stop people from going overseas and to stop Australians from coming home, it's unthinkable. This is North Korean stuff.
It is. there's not too many free nations in the world that prevent their citizens from leaving. We're not even talking about people coming back into the country, but people who want to leave, people who may have an ailing mother who they want to see for one last time before they pass away, and we're preventing them from doing that. These are wounds that people will carry for them for life. I think we're being so.
Yes, well,
and you talked about lack of faith in the quarantine program, but it's also lack of faith in the vaccine program. It seems from the government.
Well, that's right. You
if
can't
the
have it both
vaccines
ways.
work, and they do.
Yeah, that's right. If the vaccine was meant to be the be-all and end-all, which we should say here, it isn't. It is an assistance and an aid. But you see, one disturbing comment, I think, by the PM, when he said last week, after that National Cabinet meeting, and they're useless, but I mean, when he said, the public, I don't think, have an appetite for this. What's he mean by that? Does he mean that he decides policy on the basis of polls, or does he decide policy on the basis of what is right and the need to persuade the public to the correct position? My argument is a Prime Minister, a leader, has to get into the ring and prosecute the case, explain to people what the reality is, the health reality. You have to be partly responsible for your own health. We don't want Prime Ministers and Ministers and Health Ministers and Premiers telling us how that we safeguard our own well-being. And who are these quote-unquote experts? They're selectively chosen. You and I could cite many other experts who disagree entirely with this kind of strategy. Which experts are we leaving to? And what appetite do we have to have before we restore the validity of the passport to all Australians? What does it mean? You may as well rip it up.
Oh, brilliant, Alan. Brilliant. You're so right. Leadership means doing the right thing, not just doing the popular thing. And
Correct.
It seems
That's
at the moment our politicians, whether they're state leaders or the Prime Minister, are just following the polls and governing by
they're not leaders, they're
news
followers.
poll. Like, it can't
Not
have it that
leaders.
way.
Followers, Rita, not
Absolutely.
leaders. Followers, not leaders.
You're
Good
a
on you.
leader, Alan Jones, and
Santosh.
thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Rita. All the best. Bye-bye.